How's it going, everyone? NDSean45 coming at you. The question video has pretty much run its course, and as you guys can tell, I have my laptop here with me. I am ready to answer the questions that you guys took the time to ask, and from looking at the number of questions we have here, pretty nice turnout, so prepare yourselves for a lengthy video. Just giving you guys a heads up right away. So let's dive right in. The first question comes from a user who calls himself Cormac Shuett, and from the look of his picture, he's a Georgia Tech fan. Hope I pronounced the name correctly. His question is, what is the best line in the movie Rudy? Well, Cormac, there's two in my opinion that are really good. The first one was the scene where Rudy and his friend Pete are having lunch during work, and Pete just gave Rudy his Notre Dame jacket, and Rudy says to him, "You know, Pete, you were the only one who ever took me seriously." And Pete replies by saying, "Well, you know, like my father always says, having dreams is what makes life tolerable." And that's always been a favorite line of mine because it's pretty much true. The second line in that movie was when Rudy was talking to Father Kavanaugh right before he got into Notre Dame. He was still stuck, you know, hadn't quite gotten there yet, and he asks Father Kavanaugh, "Have I done everything I possibly can? Can you help me?" And Father Kavanaugh responds by saying, "Son, in 35 years of religious studies, I've come up with only two incontrovertible facts. There is a God, and I'm not him." I've always loved that line. It's great. So those two lines I think are the best in Rudy. Next question comes from a user who calls himself Smoky Dog. He says, "I saw your recent video. What was your favorite college football game from the past 5 years, not with Notre Dame?" Well, Smokey, there's actually a couple different games that I had a lot of fun watching. One is going to be pretty ironic, actually. The SEC Championship from 2012 between Alabama and Georgia. I know Alabama went and beat us up pretty good in the national title game, but you know that SEC Championship game was really good. Came down to a last-minute drive by Georgia. Georgia came up just short. You know, I really thought that was the Bulldogs' time to get to the national championship, but it just wasn't meant to be. And regardless, being just a outside looker, you know, or an outside fan looking in, however you want to say it, really was a great game. Had a lot of fun watching it. The other game was the Iron Bowl from this past season. I mean, that was a lot of fun to watch. Auburn getting that return at the end, and I did not see that coming. I was actually watching that in the Buffalo Wild Wings with a couple buddies of mine, and we were just in shock that happened. I mean, that was fun to watch. And of course, an honorable mention goes to this past year's national title game. That had a pretty nice finish to it, but you know, it was good, but it just wasn't one of the all-time favorites. But I felt it deserves at least a special mention here. Alright, the next question comes from Jonathan Price, and he asks me, who do you think the top 10 greatest Notre Dame football players of all time are? Jonathan, when I first saw that question of yours, I can't lie to you, I kind of thought it was an unfair question because, you know, 100 plus years of playing football at Notre Dame, man, how do you limit a list like that to just 10? Because there's been so many great players that have come through there over the decades, but this is the list that I put together, and I just, you know, it just seems not fair with all the guys that I'm leaving off here, but, you know, just going by different periods of Notre Dame football and at times when the game was played differently from how it is now, this is the list that I came up with. And in no particular order, we start off the list with Tim Brown. Tim Brown, what more can you say about him? A very speedy wide receiver, great hands, great talent. The last Heisman Trophy winner at Notre Dame back in '87. You know, big difference maker in that time period that he played for us. The next one, pretty much the same thing. The Raghib Rocket Ismail. Of course, as we all know, he was a very speedy wide receiver, known for his kickoff and punt returns. A very electrifying player. Had a lot of fun watching him when I was a kid. Joe Montana. Now, maybe most people could argue that because Montana probably wasn't as flashy at Notre Dame as he was in the pros, but you know, he was a difference maker when he was at Notre Dame. I mean, they call him Comeback Joe for a reason. I mean, best example, the chicken soup game from the Cotton Bowl in '79 against Houston. Plays the game sick. leads them back from being down 34-12 to the Houston Cougars, and they end up winning the game 35-34. And he did that on a couple of different occasions. So it's only fitting that Montana makes the list. The next man on the list, quarterback Paul Hornung. Now, Paul Hornung deserves a spot on this list because not only was he a Notre Dame Heisman Trophy winner, but he did it while playing for a losing team. Because the year that he won the Heisman Trophy at Notre Dame, that Notre Dame football team was 2-8. So anyone who can do that deserves a spot. The next one, George Gipp. Now, most people could probably question that, but hey, it is the Gipper. And even though he got off to a slow start in his collegiate career, he played at Notre Dame from 1917 to 1920. He compiled over 2,000 plus rushing yards in his career, and that was a Notre Dame school record that stood for almost 60 years until I believe Vegas Ferguson broke it in 1978. Johnny Lujack, very solid quarterback, great difference maker for the Irish, another Heisman Trophy winner. The seventh persons that I have on this list, you can't break them up. But the Four Horsemen, they're deserving of their own slot. I mean, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, backfield in the history of college football. Granted, they played at a different time. Had they played later, things obviously probably would have been different, but they're deserving of their own spot. And I'm not saying that, the individuals themselves, Harry Stuhldreher, Don Miller, Jim Crowley, Elmer Layden, not saying that they're not talented on their own, but all four of them together is what made that backfield work and known for what it is today. So they're deserving of their own spot. Maybe that's not fair, but hey, give me a break. You can't really separate the guys, Next player on the list, Tony Rice. Now, obviously Tony Rice didn't do much at the professional level, but while at Notre Dame, he was very electrifying, very known for his scrambling abilities, but he did have a cannon when he needed it. And he was actually the last Notre Dame quarterback to lead us to a national championship in '88. And also, I've had the personal pleasure of meeting Tony in person at an autograph signing, and a real nice guy, and a very talented player, and he deserves a spot on this list for being the difference maker that he was that season. Next player on this list, Leon Hart, defensive lineman at Notre Dame, and he was really a big pivotal difference maker for the Irish at that time period. Very tough and rugged player. If I'm not mistaken, Notre Dame was 36-0-2 at his time at Notre Dame. One of very few players that I know who have won a national championship, a Heisman Trophy, and was taken #1 overall in the NFL draft. So it's only fitting that he deserves a spot on this list. Now, the last name on this list, the last name on this list might surprise some of you guys, but Bob Crable. I believe he was a linebacker at Notre Dame. He was there in the mid to late 70s. He is the all-time leading career tackles leader at Notre Dame at 521. And I believe in one game, I think it was against Clemson, but I could be wrong, he had 26 tackles in one game. And actually the Crable rule happened because of him, because now you can no longer use your own players to jump up and block a kick. Anyone who has seen I think it was the '79 game against Michigan, go back and watch it and you'll see why. But big, tall, beastly player, and he was quite a difference maker for the Irish on defense. So that is my top 10 list, Jonathan. I hope, I know, again, there's a lot of other guys you could put on this list, but like I said, you can't limit this to just 10. But that's my list, in my opinion. The next couple of questions come from a user, vpatel1010, and he has 3 questions. The first one is, Sean, do you think we will make the playoffs? Can't believe I'm saying this, playoffs. Yeah, V Patel, I do think we can. I think if we get at least 10 wins this upcoming season, that should be enough to get us in. But we'll just have to wait and see. But other than that, I do think we can get in. The next question that he has is, will ND have an elite defense this year in spite of the many losses that we've had on defense? Yeah, I do think the potential is there. Now, granted, we did lose guys like Stephon Tuitt and Louis Nix, which will hurt, but you also have to remember, too, that we played a few games without Nix, and we lost Tuitt in one game, but and Tuitt was pretty much playing hurt the whole year, at least from the get-go he was. But we still have guys back like Sheldon Day and Eshak Williams, and then we got a load of defensive linemen coming in this recent recruiting class. Guys like Blankenship and Jay Harris and Dan Cage, and I forget his name, but that one three-star defensive lineman from who's from the state of Maryland. So we should be fine on the defensive line, and even in the secondary we should be fine. But and I'll get to this in a little bit. But the only thing that concerns me is our linebacking core. But that's for another question on here. And the third question that V. Patel asks is, do you think Zaire will be better than Winston, assuming he starts over Golson? If you don't think he will start, explain why you think Golson will win the job. Thanks. Hopefully you can answer at least one of these. Well, V. Patel, I do think this is not really this is a simple answer for me. I think Golson will be the starting quarterback when the Rice game gets here. And that's not a knock on Malik Zaire, but just the thing is, this is Golson's team. Despite him missing the season last year for his academic issues, he has experience, and you can't start a guy that has no experience if you have a player who does. You know, and like I said, that's not a knock on Malik, but this is still Golson's team to lead. And Malik had a nice showing in the spring game. He really did, but I just think that with him, this being his first year of eligibility, you keep him as a backup for the time being. And if Golson were to screw up in any way, you know, you take comfort in at least knowing that you have a quarterback who has had enough work that can come in and, you know, pretty much continue where Golson left off, if that happens. But for the time being, I think this is Golson's team to lead, just because he has the experience. You know, he worked his way to get back, and so you got to go with Golson. However, if he were to for some reason to start over Everett, I don't think it's fair to compare Malik to Winston just yet, just because Winston has actually played, Malik hasn't. But do I think that Malik Zaire has the tools to be just as good, if not better, than Jameis Winston? Absolutely. But of course, you know, he's got to get his chance to prove it first. But I mean, from the spring game, you could see that he had all the tools, all the intangibles. So, yeah, I think that would be a pretty fair statement. But of course, we have to find out yet. You can't say for sure definitively just yet. So I hope that gives you a pretty good explanation. Alright, the next question comes from one of my longtime viewers. Well, the next two questions comes from Irish Football 25, a longtime viewer of mine. And his first question is, what are your top 3 favorite Notre Dame players of all time? In no particular order, Rocket Ishmael. Loved watching him when I was a kid. Very electrifying. Number 2, Golden Tate. I mean, he was fun to watch, even though he's more of a recent player. Not from 120 plus years ago. He was a lot of fun to watch. A speedy, tough, fast player, great hands. I mean, the one memory that's still stuck in my head to this day is from the first ever Shamrock Series game from down in San Antonio when they played Washington State, and Tate leaps up while being defended by 3 Washington State defensive backs and just snags the ball out of the air and comes down for the touchdown at the end of the half. I mean, that was an incredible catch. So Golden Tate's number 2. And number 3, this was a tough one, but I think it would have to be a tie between Jerome Bettis and Autry Denson. Jerome Bettis is big beastly fullback who just was very talented and just plowed people over. Autry Denson, he was a lot of fun to watch, and I actually had he was actually one of the first Notre Dame players that I actually had the chance to meet back in '97 when I was 11 years old. I got to go watch a practice, and so he was one of the first ever players that I met and first ever autographs that I got from a Notre Dame football player. And, you know, 4,000 plus career rushing yards, he was a lot of fun to watch. The second question that Irish Football asks is your top 3 favorite wrestlers of all time. That's easy. 1, The Ultimate Warrior, you know, great electrifying talent. He rest in peace. Number 2, Macho Man Randy Savage. Great character, great charisma. Oh yeah! Rest in peace to him as well. And it sucks in recent years. It seems like my whole childhood is dying out. But I mean no disrespect by that, of course. But it sucks. And my third favorite, Sting. Now, with Sting, I liked him when he had the whole crow gimmick, but I think I liked him better when he was the Stinger. You know, had the beach blonde hair and the crew cut. You know, from his early days in WCW or NWA, whatever you want to call it. But of course, I'd be lying if I said I didn't cheer for Hogan when I was a kid. I mean, who didn't? What kid didn't cheer for Hogan in the mid '80s to late '90s, or to mid '90s when you know? So there you go. The next question comes from user Andrew Harris. He says, "Hey Sean, what is your thought on the new field turf at Notre Dame Stadium, and do you think Everett Golson will be a captain for this upcoming season?" Well, Andrew, the field turf I have zero problem with whatsoever. I know I'm a traditionalist in a lot of other things, but the field turf, I'm all for it. If it's going to help our players, be able to utilize their skills a lot more and become better players, then I'm all for it. Now I know football should, from a traditional point of view, should be played on grass, but at this point with that stuff, I don't care. I just want to, as a Notre Dame football fan, I want to see this team win. I mean, and Brian Kelly and Jack Swarbrick even said it themselves. The team practices on field turf. Why not put it on the game field as well? The only thing is though, I just hope they don't go too ridiculous with logos and all that stuff. I really would just like to see the slashes in the end zone, and that's it. But obviously, if they were to put an interlocking ND at midfield or whatever, then that's their choice, not mine. But regardless, I'm all for the field turf. As for Everett Golson, that's hard to say if he'll be a captain or not. I mean, he did screw up last year. He made a mistake that cost him the whole season last year. So if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say no, just based on that alone. But then again, you also have to give him credit too, because he could have easily walked away and went somewhere else, but he didn't. He took his responsibility like a man. He took his punishment like a man, and he worked his way back to Notre Dame and did what he said he was going to do. So I mean, he paid his time, and I don't know, maybe that could be worthy of him becoming the captain. But at this point, just my prediction, I would have to say no. That he'd have to do a little more to earn it. So, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Next question comes from JD Sports, and he asks me, "What other sports did you play besides football, and what numbers did you wear?" Well, JD, when I was a little kid, I played soccer for a little bit, but I gave that up pretty quick. I did track for 1 year when I was in 8th grade, mostly a thrower and shot put and discus, and I did do a couple of running events, believe it or not. I know some of you are probably watching this and going like, "What?" Well, yeah, I actually had the ability. I do have, or at least back then, had the ability to run, and I still do go running just about every day. But I'm just obviously not, as fast as I used to be, and even back then I wasn't super fast. But the thing is, I've always been a bigger guy. It's just how I was built. But I did play baseball for the longest time, and I know if that troll's watching, because he just sent me a derogatory message this morning about some post that was on a Notre Dame website like 2-3 years ago. I did play baseball, but unfortunately I never was able to play for my high school team. I just always had trouble hitting the curveball, and that's always what did me in. But for my whole life, I was pretty much a summer league player. Played 2 years of Legion ball. But it was a lot of fun too, and but still though, when just a few years ago, about 5-6 years ago, that still didn't stop me from going to a couple of Major League Baseball tryout camps. And if that troll's watching, you're an idiot, because anyone, even people who have never picked up a baseball in their lives, can go to those camps. See, this troll, he left me a derogatory message of a post on a Notre Dame website from a few years ago. Where people were saying that I apparently said that I was recruited by Major League Baseball, and that is just, I never said that. That is just asinine. Major League Baseball, them coming after me, give me a break. That's just a stupid thing to say. No, I was never drafted by Major League Baseball. All I did was I went to a couple tryout camps, and that was it. And I guess I got talked to by one scout who really all he did was give me advice. He wasn't really recruiting me. So give me a break. But anyway, aside from that nonsense, my football number was always 59. I played a little bit of guard and tackle, backup of course. I'll be man up to admit I was not a great football player. I probably got too caught up in being a kid than putting in the kind of work that it takes. But hey, at least I can admit it. But I loved it though. It was a great time. And for baseball, my number was always 40. I don't know, there was something about 40 that just always intrigued me. So that was my number in Little League, and it was all the way through the 2 years of Legion Ball that I played. So there you go, JD. Next question comes from a user named David Thompson, and he asks, "What other teams do you follow besides Notre Dame in the professional leagues?" Well, Dave, I am a Chicago guy all the way. Love the Bulls, love the Blackhawks, big Bears fan. Actually, that's right. Got to give the Bears some love in these videos. Very happy with what they've done in the off season and in the draft, and I think they're going to be a vast improvement over what they were last year, especially defensively. So NFC North and NFL in general, look out for the Bears. They're coming. Monsters of the Midway are coming back. And like I said, the guys they got in the draft, Kyle Fuller and Ego Ferguson, Will Sutton, Shane Vereen, they're going to be quite the force. They're on their way back. Now, as far as baseball in Chicago, get ready to laugh, people, but I'm a Cubs fan. I know, yes, we suck. I get it, but that's just they're the team that I grew up watching, and I just never really liked the White Sox. Not because of the players or anything like that, but just I couldn't stand Ozzie Guillen when he was there. He had such a big freaking mouth, I couldn't stand him. So those are the other teams that I follow besides Notre Dame. Next question comes from a longtime viewer, Super Sparrow45, and he has a couple of questions. And the first question he asks is, what do you expect from the defense this year? Personally, I think it's going to be surprisingly very good. A lot of question marks are based on the lack of experience and depth up front. But looking deeper, I see plenty of both. Maybe not much on the field experience, but there are some veterans mixed in there, and the depth is definitely there. Well, Super Sparrow, I agree with you. And I think the defense is going to be pretty good. The only real concern that I have is our linebacking core. We're going to be very young at linebacker. We don't really have a lot of veterans in there. Joe Schmidt is the only one that I can think of at the top of my head, and maybe Eshak could play back there as well. But we're definitely going to see Jalen Smith continuing to step up, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of the young linebackers that we have coming in, like Niles Morgan and Niles Sykes, contributing right away. And that's I'm not saying that those guys aren't talented or anything like that, but they're young, and it's obviously with Van Gorder's system, it's going to take some time to get to learn. But I do see these guys being quick learners, and I think they could be really good. But just right now, linebacker is the only concern that I have, and we're just going to have to wait and see on that. But overall, I think the defense should be pretty solid. I don't know if they'll be elite, but they'll at least be good enough to get the job done. A lot better than last year. His second question is, what do you think so far of Jose Abreu? And I assume you're talking about Jose Abreu from the White Sox, correct? Well, like I said, I don't really watch the White Sox, but just based on what I've seen of Jose Abreu and his stats, he's off to a good start in his career. 273 batting average, 13 home runs. He's got a bright future ahead of him, I guess. But again, I'll have to really start watching more of him to really get to know him. So, sorry I can't tell you more on that. And then the last question Super Sparrow asked me is, what do you think about the Blackhawks right now? I'll tell you exactly what I think. I am ecstatic about the Blackhawks. Had a big win last night in Minnesota to close out that series. Back in the Western Conference Finals. Awaiting the results of Los Angeles and Anaheim. And it's going to be another tough road for us to get back to the Cup. But I think we're up for the challenge. Now, before anyone says anything, no, I am not a bandwagon Blackhawks fan, okay? I know there's been a lot of them popping up and calling themselves fans all of a sudden since with the recent success we've had in the last 4 years, winning 2 cups in the last 4 seasons, but I've been watching the Blackhawks for a long time, since I was like 6 or 7 years old. I remember the days of watching Jeremy Roenick and Tony Amonte and Eddie Belfour in net, Chris Chelios, who was there forever. Jeremy Roenick was actually my favorite player, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but I remember the 1992 Stanley Cup Finals, and I cried when they lost, but hey, I was 6 years old. So, no, I'm not a bandwagon fan. I have been watching them for a long, long time. The next question comes from a person who calls himself Gina Jonas, and I'm not going to lie, I was kind of suspicious about this account because it just, I thought it was, first I thought it was that troll, but even if it is a troll account, no stupid questions, so I'll go ahead and answer it, and I apologize if it's not the troll, but give me a break. I've been a little on edge with that lately, being on the lookout for him and all that. This Gina writes, hello, very kind of you to give props to the other guys for the idea, referring to when I gave Big Vol Daddy and Haas a shout out because, hey, it was their idea. They're the ones who originally did it. She has two questions. With the advent of the college football playoffs, do you think Notre Dame will join a conference anytime soon, and if so, which one? My answer to that question, Gina, is no. I don't think we'll join a conference anytime soon. Our independence just means too much to us, and it makes Notre Dame what Notre Dame is. I mean, they're pretty much the New York Yankees of college football. You either love them or hate them. There's really no gray area. And as a fan, I like that, But I think if in any situation where we absolutely had to join a conference as full-time members, I do think the ACC would be the best fit for us. Just on a little side note there, still good recruiting territory and some pretty good competition in that conference. So if we had to join a conference as full-time members, the ACC would be it. And her second question is, do you think the addition of field turf to the stadium in this year will contribute to Coach Brian Kelly changing his offensive philosophy this year, or Notre Dame's recruiting philosophy in the future, i.e. more playmaker-type players? No, I don't think it'll really change anything. I mean, well, I guess it'll change the aspect of Coach Kelly being able to do more what he would like to, especially since since it's pretty much all his guys that he recruited in there now. So I mean, yeah, I guess it could a little bit change his offensive philosophy, but he's pretty much been running his way anyway. And as far as his recruiting philosophy, he already goes after those playmakers anyway. As a matter of fact, in a recent interview, these are his words. He was talking about going after these five-star blue chip players, and Kelly said, "Hey, I want to be able to recruit all of them, but being at Notre Dame, things are a lot different here, and I really can only go after 1% of those five-star players out there." But the problem, of course, that I have with that is everyone else is going after that 1%. But so I don't think it'll really change. Again, I don't think it'll really change his recruiting philosophy because he goes after those kind of players anyway. So I hope that answers your question there, Gina. At least as best as I can, anyway. Another buddy of mine, Mr. Sports Freak 56, he asks, what is your favorite music genre and favorite band? Sports Freak, I am a classic rock guy all the way, and I am a huge AC/DC fan. My favorite band of all time. But, of course, I have other favorite bands as well. Van Halen, Bon Jovi, just a lot of 80s metal, a lot of other classic rock. I like the Steve Miller Band, and I'm actually going to be seeing them live sometime over the summer, along with Journey, even though it's not Steve Perry, but whatever. It's should be a good show. So yeah, just a lot of classic rock, and I don't really listen to any new stuff like club pop stuff. I just can't stand it. But one newer band that I do like is a band called Airborne. They're pretty much AC/DC if they came out today. Another Aussie rock band. You guys have seen my highlight reels. I use a lot of AC/DC. Well, I've started to use some Airborne tracks in the recent ones that I've done. So that's pretty much my favorite genres of music. But also, being one who was born in the mid '80s, my parents they raised me on a lot of oldies. So believe it or not, I do like oldies music. It's some good stuff. But anyway, that should give you a pretty good idea of what I like musically. Then the next question comes from CubsFan29, and his question is, what is your favorite Notre Dame rivalry game, and which Notre Dame opponent do you hate the most? Oh, well, as far as my favorite rivalry, that's a tough one because there's been some good rivalries, but I think my two favorites would have to be Notre Dame USC and probably Notre Dame Michigan, just because of the history involved in that one. I've been to the one Michigan game, and that was back in 2004 when Darius Walker made his debut, ended up beating him 28-20 that day. And I've been to 3 Notre Dame USC games, and I was there last year when we finally beat the 11-year streak and beat them in South Bend for the first time since 2001. So some good memories there. As far as the opponent that I hate the most, here's the thing. I know a lot of you would probably expect me to probably say Michigan State, but here's the thing. I don't really hate opponents. I'm not a hateful person. It's just that when it comes to our opponents, there's just some things that some of their fans do, or coaches, whatever, that just I feel are really disgraceful and disrespectful. But I guess if I had to pick, I would probably say USC, just because we haven't had much success against them these past 15 years. And probably as of late, Michigan for kind of the same thing. But with Michigan, it's more just the disrespect from guys like Brady Hoke, who made the whole chicken comment. And the funny thing is that series was going to end after, I believe, this year anyway, or the next couple years. So I don't know why Brady Hoke was opening his mouth. But there was him opening his mouth. There was, after the game last year, them playing the chicken dance, and the one fan during game day who held up the "Hi Lizzie Seberg" sign, and the bullcrap excuse that he made afterwards, trying to say that he was just trying to raise awareness. Bullshit. Okay, that guy knew what he was doing. He was trying to take a disrespectful jab at Notre Dame and try to send a little message about dirty politics and sweeping under the rug and crap like that. So that's just that part. That stuff I just felt was classless and disrespectful. But there's been a few fans over the years that I've encountered on here that have been kind of crappy, but I've also met a lot of cool Michigan fans as well. So And as far as Michigan State goes, like I said, I'm not gonna hate an entire school or fan base just because of a handful of psychos. And as a matter of fact, I've actually made some Michigan State friends on here, so who took the time to get to know me, understood where I was coming from with that whole situation, and so yeah, it's amazing how things can change in 5 years and the kind of friends you can meet. So I guess I would have to say Michigan and USC, just based on those things alone. But really, it's not the fans that I hate. Hopefully that clears some things up there. All right, now these last series of questions. That was the last question that was posted on the video, but these next series of questions were ones that were sent to me via private message from some viewers. And this next question comes from a person who calls himself Taz, and he says, assuming it's a he. I've heard you occasionally talk in your videos about politics and share your personal views and your Christian faith. As one who holds similar beliefs to you, I say good for you, and don't ever be afraid to express them. My question for you is, did you get any backlash on your video about the California school banning the U.S. flag, or any of your beliefs for that matter in general? Well, Taz, I didn't really get any backlash from that. If you go back and look at the comments and what people were saying, I actually got a very positive reaction to that video. I had people sending me private messages saying, "Thank you for making that video, Sean. You're a patriot. We need to see more stuff like that." And the comments on there speak for themselves. One of my buddies, Gator Boo, actually said it was the video of the decade. Well, I don't know about that, but it was a good reaction. The only kind of backlash that I got, and this really isn't backlash, I had one person who was a longtime viewer of mine who's a Notre Dame fan tell me that they weren't happy that I wore my Notre Dame gear while making that video because Notre Dame is full of people who are from different areas and different backgrounds, and they felt that I just shouldn't have been wearing my Notre Dame gear. And if that person's watching, I'm not criticizing you, but from the undertones that I was getting in that message, I really doubt that this person would have said that stuff to me had my views been liberal. Because if Notre Dame is full of alumni and fans that come from different backgrounds and places, then how am I any different? How are my views any different than that category? So I think that only got said because my views are more traditional and conservative. But that's just my opinion. I can't say that for sure. And then there was another person who was a longtime viewer of mine. He didn't give me any criticism or backlash. He just asked me more questions as to what I was talking about and asked to know more about my views, and you know, and he's more of a liberal guy than I am. But he just thought that you know, I was saying that you know, the social issues are what was bringing this country down. And I'm like, no, not at all. I'm not going to get into that whole conversation. But we had a nice conversation, and we cleared the air there. And so I understand him, he understands me. So really no backlash, just a few questions. The next question comes from a user who calls themselves Snickers89. Hey Sean, I've been a long-time viewer of your videos, and just to let all of you know before I finish this, I was really debating about answering this question, but in the end I decided I'm not saying anything that counts as shit talk. I'm just simply answering this person's question. It's a very innocent answer. But he says, I've been a long-time viewer of your videos, but this is my first time commenting. I like your videos, and I have to say you really are a true Irish fan through and through. I was just curious if there were still problems going on between you and that Michigan State website. Very simple answer. Snickers, I haven't heard a peep out of them in over 2 years. None of them have come to harass me on here. I don't even think they're still talking about me, and even if they are, I don't know about it because I don't go there to find out. And you know, people who I do have out there, you know, looking out for me in regards to stuff like that, they haven't come to me in a very long time. So at this point, I would have to assume that whole thing is dead, buried, and over with. And again, if they are talking about me, I don't know about it because, you know, you can't be mad about something that you don't know about. But also, there really is no reason for them to be talking about me anyway because we don't play one another for the next couple of seasons. At least not until, I want to say we don't play Michigan State again until either 2016 or 2017, I believe. And then I think that might be the last time. So, but I could be wrong about that. But no, the only thing that I've seen lately was when I posted my tribute video to the Ultimate Warrior. I did see on the video views on the statistics that I had about 40 views coming from 247sports.com, which is what that website is now affiliated with. But I'm not going to make any assumptions about that because every team has a website on there or a message board or whatever. So I can't say for sure that it's coming from them. So it could be coming from an Alabama web page. It could be coming from Clemson or USC or Florida State, whatever. So, but as far as I know, those problems have died off completely. At least I would hope so anyway. Because until now I haven't really given it a second thought. The next question comes from a person who calls himself simply Rob. And he asks, Sean, do any Notre Dame football players watch your videos? Well, Rob, to be honest with you, I seriously doubt it. Just because I know you should never say never, but I strongly doubt it because those guys have a lot on their plates to deal with already, and the last thing they're going to care about is what a guy like me has to say. Some random guy on YouTube who makes videos in his spare time for fun. So I really doubt it. You know, if they do, that's awesome. But like I said, as far as I know, I would have to say no, just because of, you know, they're not going to care what I have to say. And honestly, I'd kind of be afraid if some of them watch my videos because I know after a few hard losses in the last few years, I've gotten pretty critical and you know, probably got a little too angry and whatnot. And you know, those guys, I'm not the one to judge those guys. I'm as much as I hate this term, I'm pretty much an armchair quarterback. But so I always got afraid, like, oh man, what if Notre Dame players watch this video and they're going to be pissed off at what I said? They're going to kick my ass if I ever get a chance to meet them. But no, I honestly, I really doubt they do, because they're not going to care what I have to say. And if they do, that's awesome. And if any of them are watching, I hope I haven't pissed you guys off too much, or made too much of an ass out of myself or Notre Dame. But I will say this though. There was one time that I do know about. Now, I'm not going to give any names of the player in question or my buddy who told me, but some years ago, about a year or two after I'd started doing YouTube, I found out from a buddy of mine who talked to this player at a Notre Dame banquet while in South Bend. Apparently this player in question did something for me during a game, gave me a little shout out, so to speak. And again, I'm not going to go over the circumstances or whatever, or give out names, but I emailed the player and asked him if it was true, and he responded back to me and said, yeah man, that is true, and I just wanted to give you a little shout out. So there was one player that I do know of that did see a couple videos. But of course, I'm not going to, like I said, again, I'm not going to give out details or names. And the only thing I would hope to do one day is meet that player and shake his hand and say thank you. Alright, the next question is from my good buddy Bronson. And he asks, how many points do you think Notre Dame's offense will average a game? And do you think Brian Kelly will go to a more high-tempo, hurry-up offense like his days at Cincinnati? Way too early to predict, but I think we have the potential to average probably about 30 points a game, if not more, with the kind of players that we have on offense. At least when the Rice game gets here, I'd like to see us at least put up 50. And as far as Brian Kelly going back to his high-tempo, hurry-up days at Cincinnati, he very well could. I mean, I stated earlier that now that he's starting to get the guys in there that he recruited, he can do more of that. So we very well easily could see more of that. So that's very possible. The next question comes from my friend and colleague over at NotreDameInTheEndzone.com, Alabama Duck. And he says, I made a prediction that Jalen Smith will play approximately 70% of the plays as the middle linebacker. Coach Kelly said that Joe Schmidt cannot come off the field, and he plays middle linebacker. My question for you, Sean, is do you think that Coach Kelly might be correct? Well, Alabama Duck, I started talking about this earlier, but to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, I know Joe Schmidt will probably have to be on the field quite a bit, but I really think we're going to have to see a lot of the young guys come in and contribute right away, and I think that's probably what we're going to see happen. But I think we'll be able to get Joe Schmidt off the field for a couple of plays when he needs it, but just given everything, just given the situation, I think Coach Kelly, he could be correct, and at the very least not far off from the truth, because we're going to see a lot of young guys in that linebacking core. So that could very well be the case, but it could not be the case. We'll just have to wait and see how summer practice goes. But it could not be that far off from the truth. The next question comes from a user who calls himself Beast, and he asks, Sean, what happened to Gunther Dobkins? I miss him. Could you please bring him back? Well, Beast, to be honest with you, I've thought about it. You see, when I started this channel that I'm currently on right now, my goal was kind of to try and stray away from, making, perverted jokes and things like that. And it's not that I don't have a sense of humor or that I've lost it or anything like that. I just wanted to try to make this page strictly about Notre Dame football, and this is going to sound stupid, but show a little more professionalism than clowning around and all that. But one thing I've learned in the last few years is you got to have some fun on here. You can't be strictly professional all the time. So I think I could probably bring Gunther out of exile one of these days. Just got to find him. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I could work something out in the near future. And the last question comes from a person who calls himself Chris. And he asks me, You've been doing YouTube videos for a while now. What has your experience been like? That's his first question. And then his second question was, what are the best and worst parts of it and most bizarre things that you've seen? Well, Chris, to answer your first question, the experience overall has been a blast. You know, with all the, I've met a lot of nice people on here and made a lot of new friends. And you know, Shamrock Jerry, you know, he's the first one that comes to mind. I mean, I got a friend across the pond in Ireland, and him, along with a lot of the other people here, mainly the guys in the trash talking circle, and other people that I've met, you know, other Notre Dame fans that I've met in South Bend. That wouldn't have happened had I not decided one day to just stumble on YouTube and give it a shot. So I'm very thankful for that, and that just being able to make new friends like that across the country and across the world, and just, you know, have those kind of experiences. It's been, I mean, I was able to travel to Ireland and, you know, actually meet a friend over there. You know, have someone waiting for me at the airport when I got there. I mean, that's awesome. It's all because of me stumbling onto YouTube. And I know people like to laugh about stuff like that, but you know, the internet, as dangerous as it can be, it can also be a really awesome thing too. And again, had I not stumbled onto YouTube one day and started making videos, I wouldn't have the friends, some of the friends that I do now. And it's just been an awesome experience from that point of it. So obviously that covers the best parts that you asked. The worst parts have just been, you know, a couple of you know, the message board experiences that I've had. One that you all know about very well, but the other ones that kind of sucked a little bit were a couple of them were from Notre Dame websites, and I'm not going to say the name of the websites because I don't want to tarnish Notre Dame in any way, because even though these places aren't affiliated with the university, they're still Notre Dame websites. And but it just sucked because I've gotten some criticism, not just because of videos, but for other things as well, by a couple of these websites, and that hurt a little bit because these are some of my own fans talking down on me and hating on me and all that. And I think on one of the sites in question, it was just because Shamrock Jerry and I got a little carried away with promoting the whole raise the Irish flag at Notre Dame thing, and I think some of the guys on there just started to get sick of it. And you know, we probably got over our heads a little bit, but our intention was just to, you know, get the word out about it and get support for that. And you know, and of course some of those guys, they took it the absolute wrong way, said we had no clue what we were talking about, that, you know, Father Soren was French, that there's no Irish connections to Notre Dame whatsoever, which is bull crap. You know, anyone who does their research will know that there actually is. Because all I'll say is this: we played 2 games over in Ireland, and we haven't played one single game over in France. Gee, I wonder why that is. And if the French connection is so strong, then why aren't we called the Fighting Frenchmen instead of the Fighting Irish? But so I mean, that stuff hurt a little bit. And then there was one website that's different from this one that started to get on my case about when I made a video paying respects to a recruit that we lost in a tragic accident back in 2010, Matt James. I made a video paying my condolences to his family, and some people on this website really started saying some very awful things about me, saying that I was trying to just get attention and make money off this kid's death. And I'm like, what do you mean make money? That's just one of the most asinine things I've ever heard. I have not made 1 cent doing anything on YouTube. I just do this as a hobby, and I just was trying to pay respects to this kid's family who had just lost their son. And you know, these idiots on this one particular Notre Dame site just got really stupid with it. I couldn't believe some of the stuff that I heard at the time. But I was reassured with that situation though, because I actually heard from a couple of his family members who saw the video, and a friend of his that I contacted, and they told me that it was very respectful and I was not out of line in any single way. So that gave me a lot of closure to that. But of course the other things are, you know, just having to deal with the internet trolls and stalkers and all that, and just this one that I've been dealing with lately. He is a complete pain in the ass, and I don't know what his deal is, but he's got some mental issues. And of course, the one thing that gets annoying about YouTube is I've heard it so many times in the last 5.5 years that I've been on here doing videos. People who don't like you or whatever, who get critical of you, always resort to the mom's basement comment or the parents' basement comment, whatever. Like, you always live in your parents' basement. Seriously, that is one of the most overused and ridiculous stereotypes I've ever heard in my life. First off, just so everybody knows, I know this is the only part of my home that you see here in my office, but this is an apartment, okay? And believe it or not, I am upstairs. There is no basement here. I mean, I guess I could take you guys down to the building's laundry room if you wanted me to, but I just don't get that stereotype. Why does everybody always assume that if you make a YouTube video, you're some loser and that you live in your parents' basement? Why? I mean, come on. I've been called so many things, like uneducated, a fool, an idiot, but yet these people who insult me with stuff like that, they claim to be so intelligent, and that's the best that they can come up with is some stereotypical insult. Come on, I thought they were all educated, and I'm supposed to be the buffoon. So, it's just stuff like that that annoys me. But whatever, I push that stuff off. But when you hear it so many times, it starts to irk you after a little while. But overall, the YouTube experience has been great, and I don't regret any bit of it. Even I don't have a strong following, but all 311 subscribers that I have, you guys are all worth it. And it makes it worth getting on here week in and week out during the football season to do videos. And I have a lot of fun doing it and interacting with you guys, and even doing videos like this where I let you ask questions if you want to know something. So yeah, anyway, that's it, guys. That's the last question that I have for you. Again, another great turnout. I'm sure at this point the video is probably getting to be very long, and if you stuck with it, thank you. If you just waited to your question, no problem. But another great turnout, guys, and thank you to all of you who took the time to ask me a question, and I was very happy to answer all of those questions. So with that being said, guys, this is NDSean45 signing off. Thank you all again for your participation, and as always, go Irish, baby! Season's just around the corner.